Well, hello again, folks. The first couple of weeks of our prayer in August can truly be said to be in honour of women. Last weekend we celebrated the extraordinary woman, Mary MacKillop. And this weekend we have the biggest feast of all, the Mother of Jesus, the Feast of the Assumption. By luck and by coincidence, or I prefer God's arranging, we also celebrate a pagan woman, a Syrophoenician, a woman from Lebanon, would you believe, who helps to broaden Jesus' understanding of his mission. And more of that later. This weekend too we have 3 generations of women lectors. Thanks to all 3 and to every lector over these many weeks now who have given of their time and expertise to help us to pray. In connection with the Feast of the Assumption, Richard Leonard tells an intimate story. On August the 15th, 1975, the whole of the parish council of a village outside of the capital of Chile was taken by the military police. For months, members of the village wondered where the bodies were. In November, they had word that the bodies, in fact, of all the pastoral parish councillors were in the morgue. Sister Catherine McCormack, an Australian nun who happens to be Richard's cousin, accompanied the mothers to the morgue. And it was there that, shockingly, they found over 300 bodies all piled up on one another. The mothers had to roll someone else's son over in an attempt to find their own son. As the mothers searched, they began to weep loudly, as you can well imagine. As they wept, they prayed the rosary, and as one mother after another found her son, their prayer was louder and louder. Hail Mary, full of grace, Holy Mary, Mother of God. Sister Catherine continues the story. This is no white-skinned, blue-veiled, ever-smiling, ever-virgin woman. This is a real-life woman, fellow woman, praying with these mothers, praying with them in their agony, their grief and their anger. Afterwards they were to say to Sister Catherine, Mary knows what it's like to bring a child into the world and hold his dead body in her arms. Mary knows what it's like to bring a child into the world and hold the dead body in her arms. The writer of that Luke's Gospel has a similar earthy picture of Mary, doesn't he? In the Magnificat, Mary proclaims that God, through Jesus, will show strength by scattering people's pride. God will fill the hungry with good things and send the rich away empty if they don't share. Mary is in union with each one of us who feels the poverty and unworthiness of our humanity, very much symbolically explored and exposed by this wretched virus of COVID. Like Mary, God calls on us to face down our fears and so work for the reign of God. Thinking about the Feast of the Assumption reminds me that here in Australia we have 54 holy days of obligation. 54 days in which the church says, let's get together and pray the Eucharist. That's been good times, isn't it, folks? 54 days. Well, apart from Sunday, there are just 2 other days in the Australian church, aren't there? And people of St Kevin's have heard me say ad nauseam that they both are on about the same matter. Christmas Day, God becomes human so that we humans can become divine. And the Feast of the Assumption, the biggest feast of Mary, the Mother of Jesus, is about the celebration of one of our own reaching the fullness and completion of humanity. The other gospel in today's prayer is for the 20th of the year. Now, I don't know about you, but for us 20th, first century folk, I would think that the language that Jesus uses is off-putting and jarring, to say the least. Jesus calls the Syrophoenician woman a dog and says that she's not fit to be at the table. I just wonder how many 22nd century folk will be amazed at the variety of people that we have prevented from gathering around the table of the Lord. But I distract myself. Jesus in this gospel attempts to get rid of this pagan woman by simply ignoring her. But she obviously is persistent. And when the disciples come to Jesus and say, "Oh, look, for crying out loud, would you just do what she wants? You've been healing people up hill and down dale all over the place in these last months. Just do it. Click your finger and do it. It's simple. We're never going to get rid of her unless you do it." Jesus insists that his mission is for only the lost house of the sheep of Israel, that is, his own people. Now, this pagan woman is not easily put off, and it's one of the most moving gestures in the whole of the gospel. She kneels before him and begs him, "Lord, help me." Jesus stunningly rebuffs her by referring to her as a dog and saying it's not fair to throw the children's food to the dogs. Just by the way, apparently in Jesus' time, the Jewish people referred to pagans as dogs. How wonderfully, though, does this pagan woman pick up the image and say, "Oh, yeah, Lord, but the children can be very untidy at table and food spills from the table, and then the dogs pick up the scraps." Jesus is beautifully outwitted. He gives in and agrees to her request, saying, "How wonderful is your faith." You see, Jesus had to require a new attitude. This non-Jewish woman held up a mirror. And the bigness of Jesus is that he looked, he saw, and he broadened his understanding of his mission. Folks, you and I are the beneficiaries of this new attitude. We are the present day non-Jews, aren't we? The mind boggles at the thought, what if this incident had never occurred? What would be our fate? But folks, just remember, please, that this is the task not only of Jesus to broaden his understanding of his mission, but of each one of us too. We are asked as Catholic people to wrestle with the difficult questions of the day. Questions like women's ordination, interfaith communion. We are called on to broaden our insights and our relationship with God and with each other, and so advance the kingdom of God. Finally, the gospel takes on even more significance, it seems to me, when we realise that this non-Jewish woman came from modern-day Lebanon. Thank you.